Hi you guys, and welcome again. I thought I'd make a video on this subject because I've seen a lot of interesting information that seems to conflict with what I believe what's going to happen with inflation. And I'm going to talk to you about maybe some of the suffering some people are going through right now with this inflation. Personally, I've seen such a drastic amount of goods and services go up in price, and maybe it's partly because of where I live. I live in California. A lot of people tell me you should just move out of there. My house is paid off. The cost of moving and the increase in property taxes would offset any possible gain that I would have in doing so at this point in life, because I'm 60 years old, and it's kind of like it's a make it or break it time for me. Yeah, I've noticed the price of groceries going just absolutely through the roof, and there's a lot of people that say that there's no way to correct this, it's going to be a difficult situation. There's a lot of factors involved with it. Again, I was an A student in economics, and maybe I don't know anything, and again, maybe everything in this video is false. And again, it's up to you to decide whether you believe it or not. But this is my point of view on this. Is right now, a big portion of the reason why goods and services are so expensive, especially in California, where it's higher than anywhere else, is because the cost of energy. Our electric power is higher than everybody else. Our fuel costs are way higher than everybody else because of gas taxes. And a lot of people don't know this. When they raised the 12 cents or whatever it was years ago on gas, well, it's gone up quite a bit more since then. They raised the price of diesel 20 cents. And what that's done is it's made it way more expensive for companies to deliver goods and services. Everything goes on trucks. Everything goes on trains, all run on diesel, and basically those costs go up, and those are hard costs, causing something called cost push inflation. Now, there's a lot of people out there that say inflation is only from printed money. That is absolutely false. Okay, you can look it up in the Webster's dictionary yourself, and you will see that inflation is the cost of goods going up. It doesn't specify what does it. There's something called cost push inflation. And a lot of people think that for some reason that the things that Trump is putting forth are not going to work, and that lowering energy costs is not going to help. And I will tell you that it will. It's just not going to happen overnight. So a lot of people think that this inflation problem is going to go away, like snap your fingers, now that Trump's president, and it's just going to go away. That's not going to happen. It's going to take some time. This took a few years for this to accelerate to this point, and it's going to take a few years for it to actually correct itself. And I don't think it's going to completely correct itself, and I believe that we're going to have to grow our economy into it as well. So there's that. Things can we do to lower inflation and at least slow it down, or maybe even get rid of it altogether, or maybe shrink things a little bit? I don't know if we can really shrink them that much, but the things that will help is having an abundance of energy. If you have more supply of energy, then what happens is the price goes down. This is just simple business 101. What do I mean? If we can have an energy supply, like for instance gasoline and diesel, if we can finish the pipeline to Texas from Canada, what that will do is that will actually make it less expensive to transport the energy, to the oil. Let's talk about oil as one kind of energy. It'll make it less expensive to transfer that energy to places where there's refineries like Texas. They're probably not going to take it to California, because California's regulatory stuff on oil is completely out of line with anything, so they're not going to do that, I'm sure. They take it to Texas, where they have refineries down there, and they can refine that oil. And what that does is we may not even need that oil. We may not even use it, but it's a leverage point. So as a business owner, to get a better deal on something, you use something called leverage. So if you go, okay, if you have no leverage, so in other words, let's say I don't have oil, they call your bluff. Your places like Saudi Arabia and that can call your bluff, and they can say, hey, we know you need our oil, okay? And we're gonna charge you what we feel like charging you. If we have a oil independence, then what it'll do is we'll be able to say to them, you know what, that's okay, we don't need it. And then they'll be like, oh, well, how about at this price? Well, nah, you can lower it a little more and maybe we'll do some business. So it gives us a leverage, you guys, and this is what we've needed for the last 4 years. And shutting off the pipeline, I think, was the stupidest thing that the Biden administration ever did. It's a huge part of this inflation. It's called cost push inflation. You can look up these things in the dictionary if you want. You can tell me I'm completely wrong, but you're going to find out if you actually investigate this stuff, what I'm saying is 100% true. Another thing that can bring down, can help with inflation. And again, you guys, we're all suffering from this. It's really affected me. I've watched hundreds of thousands of dollars go through my bank accounts from this inflation. So I'm feeling it because we're talking about over the last 5 years or 4.5 years since the pandemic started. Another thing that's going to help is, I've already heard him say it, he's going to lower corporate tax. People go, oh, well, those corporations, they need to pay. Listen, guess who pays that tax? It's not the corporation. They pass that on to the consumer. You pay it. And if they can lower corporate tax, what happens is it'll create labor competition, which will be really, really good for incomes. It'll be also really, really good. So that'll help on the grow out of it portion, but it'll also help to bring down, if you have more competition, that's the best way to stop price gouging. Real easy way to fix that is have a lot more companies to compete. When you have companies that compete, they can't price gouge. There's another competitor going for the same piece of business, and having a lower corporate tax will help with the price gouging if you really think that's what the problem is. I know that a lot of it's government, and a lot of it's because of cost push inflation, which is what cost push inflation is. So if you guys don't know, is when you raise a cost like corporate tax, okay, to a business, that is a cost that they have to pass on to the consumer, which creates inflation. Inflation is the increasing of pricing over time. Any way it comes. It doesn't matter if it's from money print or from cost push or whatever. It's inflation. It's still the same. There's a lot of worry about tariffs, with Trump and tariffs and stuff like that. You know, personally, I think that Donald Trump is actually blowing a lot of smoke on some of that stuff. We'll just have to wait and see. I think he's doing something called leveraging, because if he starts to threaten that he can do this, and Canada might be willing to conform on some things. So he might be saying this stuff just to get Canada to realize we have leverage over you. We can do what we want to do. We could put a tariff on you and it would make you in a bad place. So you need to follow us when we say we're going to do this. So honestly, that's what I think he's doing. So I don't really think we need to worry that much about that. And a lot of people say, well, tariffs can cause, and then maybe he's even doing the same thing with China. I don't know. But I know he's has a track record of doing those things in the past. And since we already know what he's done before, it's a lot easier for us to see what he could potentially do in the future. So that's what I've seen before, and that's what I think he's doing now, is just blowing smoke and getting people to realize that they need to conform. They need to come in line with what he wants to do. And that's a real big business technique that companies do all the time to get their competitor in line and to get them to do what they want them to. So I don't think really the tariffs are going to be that big of an issue. And if they do tariffs, I think they're going to be on particular products that maybe we can make here, okay? And if we can make them in the United States, and we can't right now because of labor competition and other things like that, then if they have some sort of tariff, it'll actually move the business here. Yes, will it increase pricing for some of those items? Absolutely. But if you lower corporate tax in addition to that, okay, and you say, like he did, if you listen, if you watch what he said, lower corporate tax to 15% for companies that are making goods and services here. If you think about that in line with a tariff for buying stuff overseas, it forces people to look for other avenues. And if the companies have a lower tax here, I believe they can compete with some of those prices that we have overseas, and it's not going to be as much of an issue as some of the Democrats are pushing. They're pushing this stuff and saying all this stuff that's, oh, how horrible it's going to be. You know what? If I'm right about this, it's time for you to take a look at your vote and decide that maybe you need to change. Because obviously, if the information that you've been being told over the last whatever few months or whatever is false, then it might be time to look at the end of the 4-year period that maybe you're wrong. The problem is most people don't want to be wrong. They want to be right all the time. And oh well, you know, so people will ignore things that are actually right in front of their faces that are telling them what's going on, the truth. And you know, it's a lot easier to be right and ignore things than it is to be wrong and actually do the right thing. So there's a lot of, I believe it's misinformation. Maybe again, maybe I'm completely wrong on this. Maybe I don't know anything. Maybe the people who wrote the books that when I was in college were completely wrong. Maybe they just didn't know, okay? And that's why, you know, I got straight A's in economics, and I don't know anything, okay? So maybe you're the one who's right. That's why we have a comment section below. That's why we have these type of videos, so that you can kind of look these things up. It's not for me to give you all the proper documentation, information. Like I watched a video today. It was a guy talking about how that this inflation is going to keep coming, and if we're going to have this for another 4 years, regardless of who's president. And I know that that is 100% unsustainable. If we have that again, you better be ready to just pack up things and just live on the streets, because I think that's where everybody's going to be if this does not work. So it's really important, you guys, that we remain positive. We remain realizing that this stuff will work, okay? A lot of these things here will work. I just keep hearing this stuff over and over. Like this guy had this whole thing about how that investing in crypto. I honestly, I'm not putting my money in any of that garbage. I don't trust it, okay? There's nothing to back it up. It just doesn't seem like, I would rather buy classic cars than crypto, personally. And maybe that's not a very good investment. I would rather buy gold than crypto. And because there's nothing, it's just faith and confidence. People go, well, there's just faith and confidence in the US dollar, but you have the United States to back that up. So, you know, what's backing up crypto? You know, to me, it's just, I don't know, I wouldn't trust it. And he was like, well, okay, so the best thing to invest in now is cryptocurrencies, because they've been going up in value faster than the inflation. And if we're gonna have, you know, 52% inflation again, or what was 52% money supply growth, okay, in the next 4 years, like we've had the last 4 years, if we have that kind of problem, it's going to be extremely bad no matter where you have your money. So, you know, if you believe that, then whatever, you know, that's on you. The thing is people are wondering, what can you do right now to protect yourself from this inflation and try and keep your money and be able to afford to live and pay your bills. And to be honest, I would just look at doing some sort of a side hustle to make extra money and keep yourself from going into debt. Going into debt is a trap as well. Those interest rates you get from debt are going to eat you alive, and eventually it's going to be catastrophic in the long haul. So stay out of debt, okay, and pay off debt if you have it, and use some sort of a side hustle. There's tons of them out there now. You've got all kinds of things that you can do to do on the side. You can, if you can't have no skills, you can even do things like, you know, deliver food, you know, do the whatever, Uber Eats, or what's that other one? I never order from them, so I don't know their names, because it's too expensive. You know, personally, I don't go out to eat anymore. I used to go out with my wife all the time. We went out all the time, but now the price of going out to eat used to be, say, we go out and have a little something, it was like 20 bucks. The same thing we're going out is over 40 now, okay? This is in California. I don't know what it's like where you live. Has it gone up that much there, or is it only here? I used to travel. I used to go in my business. I would go out of town and we would eat out all the time. So I used to know it was cheaper everywhere else a little bit. So for instance, we had a Cracker Barrel here in California, and on the same day, one meal that I would get out of state was $9.99, and here in California it was $12.99. Same meal, exactly the same one, in a rural area and not an expensive rent area out in this was in Victorville, California. Okay, the Cracker Barrel in Victorville was $3 more per person in the same month that it was in Florida. So listen, you know, stuff is more expensive here, and people go, well, it's because rents are high. In that area, it was not a high rent area, okay? It was not a high cost of real estate area, okay? It had nothing to do with that. It has to do with fuel costs, okay? The labor costs are higher in California because the inflation from, again, another cost push inflation is minimum wage increases. People go, oh no, it doesn't have anything to do with inflation. Sure it does. It's a corporate, it's a cost that a corporation is required to pay that that they have no control over. So that's a cost push, okay? That's a cost push for them, and it's government controlled, and they have no way to do anything about it but just pay it. Same thing if they have really, really high rents. So those are cost push inflation things. And so are, again, like corporate tax, high cost push inflation causes prices to go up. I believe a lot of those things are going to be corrected over the next 4 years, and it's going to help. It's not going to be a perfect fix. It's not going to make everything go down what they used to be in price. I think we're in for a very long road, and it's going to take a lot of time. I think it's going to take more than 4 years for it to really get better. But if we see the momentum at the end of 4 years, then it's time to go, hey, you know what? Let's move towards this vote. Let's move. I really like to see California go red again. It's been red before. We didn't have this ridiculousness back when I was younger, when we had Pete Wilson as a governor. Things were doing very well here in California. And then the decline started, you know, and in fact, all the time, even during Arnold Schwarzenegger, there was no problems in California. There was no reason for me to ever talk about politics. It was doing fine, okay? When this all started, when Jerry Brown came in office, and it continued and got worse when Gavin Newsom came in. So you guys can say, maybe you younger folks that haven't lived that long, haven't been through those things, you can say, oh no, it has nothing to do with that. But I'm telling you, from my experience in my lifetime, and again, I'm not a right-wing person. I'm in the middle, but I'm middle to the right. There's no way I'll ever vote for a Democrat again in my life. No way. There's just too much lie and too much promise, and they never do anything that helps the middle class or the poor. They say they do, but it doesn't help. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe. See your comments.